Yeah.
So logistics and supply chain management are a vital part of everyone's life, but we just fail to recognize or identify the importance of the same. So today we have Mr. Chaitanya, who is a business strategist and operationist in supply chain management industry 4.0. He started his career as supply chain consultant in JDA Software, and now he is a director of strategy in Index Strategy Consulting Private Limited and director of operations in Vyapta Media Private Limited. He has a wide range of experience like handling mergers and acquisition, vendor relationship management, sales, finance, marketing, and technical team leads, training and guidance to staff. He has an ambit expertise in almost all the logistics and supply chain field. We are eager to listen to you, sir. Over to you, Chaitanya, sir.
Sure, ma'am.
1 minute. Shiva sir's introduction, and after that, NSAM.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. No issues.
It's my pleasure to introduce our second speaker of the day, Mr. Shiva Subramaniam, who is an alumni of IIM Bangalore, having more than 20 years of experience in the field of logistics and supply chain. He has worked with some of the leading automobile OEMs like Ford, Hyundai, and Tefe. He is currently leading the integrated planning function of Tefe. We are glad to have you with us, sir. Now I request our principal, Dr. R. Shanti Iyer, to deliver principal address. Over to you, Shanti ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sindhu. A very pleasant morning to all of you who are present here. On behalf of NITE Management and Dr. NSAM First Grade College, I welcome each and every one of you for this session here on logistics and supply chain during pandemic, plan for now and future. Dr. NSAM First Grade College is a part of NITE Education Trust, Mangalore, and is affiliated under Bengaluru Central University. The NITE Education Trust established in 1979 and has more than 4 decades of experience in the field of providing quality education. It manages over 38 institutions in 3 different campuses, that is NITE, Mangalore, and Bangalore. And we belong to Dr. NSAM First Grade College, Bangalore. The college believes in establishing excellence in the academic field and makes students employable and responsible citizens. There is good grounding in the academics at NSAM, and that contributes to the future, in future, to the success of its students. The business world these days, I believe, is quite dynamic. And there is a process between the organization and the corporate world. And that is where basically the supply chain and the logistics management comes in. The importance of logistics and supply chain management has grown significantly. That is what is being told by Dr. Kai Snoon Havang, the course director of the MSc Logistics and Supply Chain degree program at Kingston University, Kingston Business School, UK. In any industry, goods to be procured, stored, and dispatched. Efficient and effective management of all the business skills, business functions, it is critical. It is very critical in the current business world, I believe in. Someone equipped with the comprehensive and integrated knowledge of logistics and supply chain becomes a strong candidate in the job market these days. I'm sure even the experts and the speakers for the day will throw light on this. And the career opportunities, it is in this field, it is massive now. And to garner more information, actually, we have on this topic the 2 eminent speakers from industry. I welcome them. Mr. Chaitanya Belli, he is currently a logistic, he is working with the Index Strategy Consulting Private Limited as the director of strategy, and also he is associated with Vyapta Media Private Limited as the director of operations. We also have the second speaker as Shiva Subramaniam. He is an alumni of IIM Bangalore, and currently he is integrated with the planning functions of TAFE. I heartily welcome to both of you, sir. And now over to Professor Chaitanya, who is also associated with our NSOM. Thank you so much. Over to you, Chaitanya, sir.
Sure. Thank you, ma'am. It's an honor to be here. And every time I meet these young chaps, I believe that my future is in great hands, because these are the people who will pay my pension tomorrow. So, and then I've been to the college multiple times, and I think we are with some great crowd.
Yes.
So I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah.
All right. So there'll be two conversations to this, two pieces to this conversation, where I speak at a high level of supply chain. I will provide a 40,000 feet view of what the supply chain looks like and an intro to supply chain. And then we will have Shiva Subramanian, who's on the ground, who's working in the field and who's doing all the job of making sure things go the way they are supposed to. All right. So now this is how our ideal supply chain looks like. You know, there is somebody who makes sure that the raw materials are available. Then these raw materials are shipped to a place where they can be consumed. So there is a logistics part that comes in. And then all these that are come cannot be consumed in one shot. So they are stored somewhere. There's a warehouse. Then manufacturing happens. And once manufacturing happens, they go to a warehouse. The warehouses can be spread out across the region. And then there is a outbound logistics which connects the outbound, the warehouse to the retailers. And the retailers make sure that the customer gets the products. Now, this is a very, very beautiful, ideal supply chain. But that's not how it works. Now, let me give you an example. I will tell you a few stories from my consulting assignment. I was the one who was very strategically placed to build Shopper Stop. So as a student, I went there for a small meeting, and then the whole Shopper Stop conversations were happening then. So what used to happen was the strategy consultants there in Shopper Stop used to go to designers like Rohit Bal. And Rohit Bal would say, in which month are we? In June, right? Okay. So let's assume in April next year, the stripes shirts will be in demand. And then he would say there will be a specific demand for yellow stripes and red stripes. So the plan is laid. Now, what would the people do? They would go back and tell, the whole chain. So the farmer would start producing cotton. So the farmer is told that this is the quality of cotton that we need, and then this many tons. Now, always the agricultural people, nobody in the supply chain can be trusted because there are various points of failure. So the farmer is growing the crop, then somebody is picking the crop, and it goes to a factory. And in the factory, very specific instructions are given to say that, we need this quality of cloth coming out. So make sure that these are the tests, and this is the machinery, this is the equipment you use, and this is the output we need. So the orders are placed. Then it is sent to the factory where they start dyeing it. They give the colors, specific colors. They say, this is the kind of cloth we want. This is the kind of colors we want. These are the patterns of design that we want. Sorry. So, and then they are going ahead and doing their work. And then this finished cloth is sent to factories where these dresses are made. So they are finishing their work. They are stitching to the dimensions and everything. And once this is done, they are sent to the warehouse where the warehousing people, again, there are multiple factories. So the warehouse people make sure that it is sent to the right place. And then it is sent to Shopper Stop main warehouse, and from there it is sent to various parts of the country. Now, ideally, what will a warehouse of a Shopper Stop look like? About 60 lakhs of shirts, pants, and whatever you have in one piece. Now, this is a very, very positive, beautiful supply chain. So The whole plan is laid out, everything is done. And suddenly in December, Shah Rukh Khan and Salman Khan come with two movies with torn jeans and torn shirts. Now the whole supply chain is gone for a toss because all the youngsters who are following them will come to a shopper stop or a lifestyle and say, I want this torn shirt. Now the torn shirt is nowhere in your supply chain. How will you figure it out? You have already placed orders. The cotton is already grown. People are already dyeing it. People are already giving it colors. Somebody is stitching it. So the stitching labor contracts have been given. The contractors are brought in some places. And then how do you manage this? To add to this, say there's a cyclone suddenly, and then the Maharashtra belt hits a cyclone. So the farmers are not able to produce cotton. Or worse, there can be a truck strike and then your goods are not moving. Now, how do you manage this? Now, these are your real-time problems on the supply chain. And is there a specific answer? There is no specific answer. And how do you do things? You will have to be on your feet. You will have to be agile. You will have to be resourceful, and you will have to find alternatives. And the best guy who gets the alternative gets paid up on. And you will survive the supply chain market for a long time. So this is one example I can give you. The second example I can give you, real-time example again. So this was sometime in 2008. How many of you have heard of the Diego Garcia? Have you heard of Diego Garcia? If you have, then on the chat box say yes. Otherwise, I will tell you what Diego Garcia is. How many of you know what Diego Garcia is? All right, I'll tell you what it is. It is a small triangle-shaped island in the Indian Ocean. And it used to supply two wars, the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War. It's a very small island, but it was good enough to be a warehouse. So the US converted that into a warehouse, and the supply was going into both the countries with all kinds of war equipment, food, machinery, missiles, tanks, everything was supplied, would go to Diego Garcia first, and from Diego Garcia to these wars. Now, sometime in 2008, the problem was sent to the supply chain companies. We believe that we are sending around 110 ships a month, and we believe we are doing it a lot. Is there some company who can optimize the logistics of this? Is there somebody who can help us arrange the stock in a better way and optimize the travel? And many companies tried. Very few, even qualified for being in the part. So luckily for me, one of the directors I reported to, his wife was a supply chain consultant who was not having a job, and she qualified all the criteria. So because anyway it was going, she was sent to this assignment. Now you know how women in the house work, right? So when I bring my vegetables and then I try to put them in the refrigerator, I say it is packed, I can't put anymore. And then my wife comes, okay, give me a shot. And then she puts everything in the shelf in the refrigerator, and then there is some more space left. That is what this lady did. She optimized the supplies. She used something called planogramming software, and through which she could find a way to distribute goods in a certain way. And then she started reducing. In the first 2 months, she reduced the number of ships from 110 to 86, and 86 to 61, and 61 to 49. Now, this was only an assignment. It was a risk assignment. Nobody spoke of the revenue. And after 6 months, there came a discussion where how much do we pay? Right? So there's no formula. So even these people didn't know what to ask. So the US Defense Department itself said, we will pay you 0.000125% of the cost. And you know how much that amounted to? About 69 crores. One assignment. Now, look at the efficiency of the supply chain. Now we have the Deloitte, we have the Accentures, we have hundreds of supply chain companies. But the problem of the supply chain can be like this. You do not know where the problem comes from. You do not know what it is. Just to give you an example, okay? I was reading it sometime recently. By statistics, an average Indian meal travels about 19 miles before it comes to your plate. How much? 19 miles. Whereas a US standard meal travels 5,000 miles. Now look at this supply chain problem on the United States supplies. Very simple to assume, right? The prawns that they eat go from Kaikalur in Andhra Pradesh and go to the United States. The mangoes that they eat again start from UP, Maharashtra and Andhra and go to the United States. Now look at the distance they travel. Now, what can be the problem? It can be a multitude of a problem. You know how our supply chains in a village are, right? So it goes into a damn truck, and from that truck goes to a warehouse, and you know how carefully we plan. So food, I don't know what kind of damage goes through it. Then from there it goes to the port, and I don't know when it gets loaded, and from port it goes to the ship. And once it goes into the ship, it's almost standardized. And then from the ship it goes to the US, and then the supply chain continues. Now, this is the power of the supply chain. The another problem that I will tell you, it's a very standard problem. I'm still working on it. I'll give you an example again. Let's say I am transporting or I'm getting transferred from Hyderabad to Nagpur. So what will I do? Like a decent good boy, I go call the Agarwal packers and say, please transfer my goods from Bangalore to Nagpur. So what will the people do? They will come here, they will pack everything beautifully and then take it to the local warehouse in Bangalore. And from local warehouse in Bangalore, they put it in a huge truck and then transport it. So there will be hubs. So this truck necessarily will not go to Nagpur. So the truck goes and deposits these in Hyderabad, from where goods get distributed. Some part of it may go to Visakhapatnam and some go to Nagpur. And then there is one other truck that is going to Nagpur, which will pick my items and put it on the truck and then goes to Nagpur. Again, a beautiful, simple problem looks like. But in these small transits, they miss 3 or 4 boxes. And as a customer, after I reach, I raise a complaint. I will say my trucks have not, my saman has not reached. So they are going back and searching for it. You know what is the size of this problem of missing goods in transport? 11,000 crores annually. Now, is that a big issue? Is that a big solution? Yes. With the invent of IoTs, with the invent of a lot of these technologies, it is possible. And look at us, we are not the digital natives. We are born in a normal world and we walked into the digital world. You are born in the digital world and your intuition on digital technologies is much, much more higher than what we can do. So we look at your generation to solve these problems. 11,000 crores is not a small amount. It's a big problem. If you succeed in reducing that amount, a good fraction of the 11,000 crores is your income. Right. So this is what the supply chain industry is at a 40,000 feet level. Now, I spoke about this without the slide. I will stop here. I will ask Shiva Subramanian to take over. And towards the end, if there are questions, we will be happy to answer. Shiva, please take over.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chaitanya. Firstly, I'd like to thank the NITE education
Thank
team,
you,
especially.
Chaitanya, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Shiva Subramaniam, sir.
Yes, madam.
Are you with us?
Yes. Am I audible?
It's over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So firstly, sincere thanks to the NITE education team, especially Dr. Venugopal and Dr. Shanti for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to be here. And thanks for the participants who have taken time off to listen and understand what supply chain is. So now quickly coming back to the topic. So as Mr. Chaitanya had explained to you, you will have a fair idea of what supply chain is. If you want to put it in a nutshell, what it is the purpose of doing business is to make sure you understand a requirement or a customer demand, and you ensure that the product is delivered to the customer based on the need. That is the basic role of a business. But how you make it happen is what supply chain does. So that's in a very small nutshell of what supply chain is. It has been explained in detail by Mr. Chaitanya, but that's what it means. Now, what I'm going to take you through now is how COVID has impacted supply chain, and what is the importance of supply chain, especially in such situations like COVID. How have people had good, successful supply chain careers? And is it a right choice for you to have a supply chain as a career? So that's what I'll try to share in the next few minutes. To start with, the first thing is one of the harshful truths which all of us have faced in the last 1.5 years is the pandemic, which has impacted us in more than one ways. But sticking on to the topic which we are discussing now, let us try to see how COVID has impacted supply chains. To start with, let me ask the first question. What items did you want to buy when you heard of lockdown? Lockdown is again a word which all of us became familiar only last year. But so what are the items you wanted to buy? Most likely it would be immediately you buy vegetables, you buy medicines, you buy groceries and daily essentials. In fact, as soon as people started going and buying before a lockdown, all these items, you'll find that many of these items were not available in the market. Like, for example, I remember last year when just before we had the first lockdown and people were in a mad rush to buy all these things, a tablet like Crocin was not available. Can you believe that? Crocin is such a generic tablet which people use for fever and headaches. And the medical shops were running out of Crocin because people started buying in with the expectation probably that it may not be available later. So the buying pattern of people started to change because of this pandemic. So that's what I wanted to show here. The second question is, what changes happened in your day-to-day lifestyle due to COVID? Now, there are many, but I've tried to mention here the 3 points which most likely almost 90 to 95% of us would have been affected. The first one is people who are working in offices started to work from home, and the students who were studying started to study from home. Now, work from home to some extent people were used to before, not in a big way, but still they were doing it. But study from home is a completely different thing which the students were not earlier exposed to, but now had to accept it because that was the reality. Now, what did this result to? What it resulted was basically people started using more of the mobile phones and laptops so that they could attend the classes or communicate with their fellow students. And that change led into more of purchases of laptops and mobile phones. So that again, there is a drastic change in the demand on which was not normal before. And the last is just that because of the lockdown, people were more indoors. So people started using less of their bikes and cars. Next slide, please. So if you just recollect last year, or even this year, beginning of this year, when you went to a supermarket or to any shop, some of the products which you have definitely seen in the shelves or which the shopkeepers would have recommended you were for your daily essentials would have been Colgate products. See, Colgate toothpaste or the brushes or mouthwashes. Johnson & Johnson products like you had soaps and powders, L'Oreal shampoos, Nestle products. I remember that whenever we went to a shop, Maggi was always available. Nestle products, Nestle chocolates, or PepsiCo products like the Kurkures and the snacks, PepsiCo snacks, and Coca-Cola products. Also, when you went to buy a laptop or a printer during this epidemic, most likely you would have got the stock of Dell and HP would have been available as compared to other brands. Now, this is not something that the shopkeepers did not want to sell you the other products, and that is why they're trying to push you these. But the pandemic has affected the supply chain of almost all the companies. But these were some of the companies which have a very good supply chain. And that is why, in spite of the pandemic, they were able to deliver those products to you. It is a really very challenging situation, but because these companies have the best supply chains in the world, they were able to deliver to you in spite of the pandemic. So what you see in the center is just a research. Gartner is a company which does a lot of research and those surveys, and they try to come up annually with what are the best supply chain companies in the world. And the name of all the brands which I told you just now are in the top 25. And that is the reason why, without your knowledge, you will always be finding these products in the shelf always. And definitely 7 or 8 out of 10 chances you would have found these products. And all these supply chains were always in action, but we wouldn't have recognized that the way I have explained to you right now. Next slide, please. Yeah, so what is a good supply chain? What is an efficient supply chain is? Any supply chain which understands what a customer needs, where does the customer need that product, when does the customer need a product, and how does the customer need a product. That is a company which has an efficient supply chain. And the supply chains should be really efficient in terms of visibility and agility. So what is visibility? Visibility means the companies should be able to know exactly at each and every stage in their supply chain how much of their products are there. So if you recollect what Mr. Chaitanya had shared in the previous slides, once a particular product is ready, it is manufactured and it is shipped to a distributor, and from a distributor it goes to the retailer, and from the retailer probably to a small shop. In each stage, if the company knows, okay, for example, a Colgate toothpaste, so many Colgate toothpastes are available in the distributor end, in the retailer end, or in the shop end. If they know exactly, they will be able to make sure that whenever a customer needs it, it will be replenished automatically. That really helps to make sure that the customer doesn't run out of the toothpaste. So that's what is visibility. Agility means you should be flexible with respect to how you deliver your product. For example, let us say today is Sunday, and there is an announcement that by next, say, Thursday, there's going to be a lockdown in some place. Now, and the supplier is in Delhi. If the supplier ships the next lot of material by road to, say, Chennai or to Bangalore, it will take roughly 7 days to come. So it will not reach by next Thursday, by when a lockdown is expected. So what they have to do in such cases is understand, okay, there is going to be a lockdown. Information is very, very important. And based on that, they try to ship the products by air or by probably even by rail, so that it reaches before Thursday, and the shops have the stock probably by Tuesday, and all the customers who go for shopping before the lockdown can get those products. So that is agility. You should be able to really be flexible. And the last but not least, the cost effectiveness. You have to definitely make sure that your supply chains are cost effective. Now, the brands which are shown below, which you are definitely familiar with, Amazon, Flipkart, Myntra, Jabong. So do you think they make any products which you can buy directly? No. They are properly supply chain companies. What they do is basically making sure they understand the demand of the customer, and they make sure that they have a supplier who can meet those demands, and that too, they deliver the product in a most efficient way. So you get your Amazon products, if you order it within a day, 2 days, 3 days. Normally it was not the scenario before, but these people are so good in their supply chains that they make it happen. They in fact try to forecast what would be your demands during such lockdowns. They forecast that and they have it in stock readily, so that as soon as a lockdown is announced, they will try to make sure that you get it on time. So that is the sort of how an efficient supply chain works. Next slide, sir. Now we have seen why a supply chain is important for a customer, because they can get the products on time and all that. But then why is a supply chain important for a company? Now, this is a very simple equation which all of you should be very familiar. Is profit is nothing but how much you can sell, sales, minus the cost of making the products. Very simple equation. Nothing complicated about it. But then now, if I ask you, how are you going to increase your profit? What would you say? you increase your sales or you reduce your cost. Those are the ways, or you can do both. So those are the ways in which you can increase your profit. Supply chain plays a big role in achieving both by ensuring that their products are reached to a wide range of customers. They help in increasing their revenue, and by making sure their supply chain is cost efficient, like how I mentioned in the previous slide, they make sure that the costs are reduced in reaching the same customer. So that is the reason why many companies in the last, say, 5 to 10 years have really shown a lot of importance to supply chain as a function. And it is one of the main areas which is really focused by the senior level leadership. Next slide, please. So here I would like to mention some of the famous supply chain people with good supply chain careers. Tim Cook, the person, the first picture, all of you know that he is the CEO of Apple, the manufacturers of your iPhone, iPads, and MacBook. But did you know that before he was a CEO, he was the chief supply chain officer? Like how you have a CEO, chief executive officer, you have a chief technology officer, CTO, like that, you also have chief supply chain officer, because that's the importance given to supply chain these days. And Tim Cook was heading the supply chain function before he became the CEO of Apple. The next picture, what you see is Mary Barra, and she was also heading the supply chain function before she became the CEO of General Motors. General Motors is the company which manufactures cars like the Chevrolet, Opel, GM, and so on. So Chief Supply Chain Officer is one of the critical roles which are currently there in almost all the big organizations. And the interesting thing is 1 out of 5 of these CSOs are women employees. So it's a fantastic opportunity for women to really progress their careers in this area of supply chain. Next slide. Okay, so now coming on to, is this a good option for you? The first and foremost is supply chain is a very, very challenging area. If you like challenges, then definitely it is one of the best functions in which you will enjoy. The reason I say this is, for example, let us say the pandemic itself. The normal scenario is based on the demand of every month, what people buy, you can plan your goods and ship it to the customer. But once the pandemic came, the entire demand pattern changed. People were not buying the same way they used to buy before. They were buying randomly, they were buying more, sometimes they were buying less. So it was completely changed. But then as a supply chain professional, you need to make sure that you still meet the demand of the customer. You still should predict what is most likely to happen, and then you have to make sure that you deliver it on time. So that is the challenge which any supply chain official works. And it is not just this pandemic, on day-to-day also, like how Mr. Chaitanya told, suddenly you may find that you're not able to have trucks to deliver the goods to your, from a distributor to a retailer. So what do? Suddenly there is a strike of the lorry workers. Then what do? Suddenly there's a problem that you're not able to ship the goods by sea, like you had the Suez Canal issue recently, and the ship got stuck in the Suez Canal. So all the containers were getting delayed. So what do? So these sort of day-to-day challenges are something which every supply chain person faces, and how well you're able to come out of the situation and meet the customer requirement is what shows how successful you are. The second is you have to be always with an innovative mindset. If you remember, Amazon was trying to see whether can they deliver your products through drones. So it's not something which happens in a day-to-day scenario wherein you can think of delivering through drones, but then they thought of that. That's innovation, wherein we try to think better than your competition, because it's nowadays it's not a competition between businesses. It's a competition between supply chains. How best can you ensure that your product reaches the shelf of a shop before your competition. And that's what then the customer will see and buy. If your product is not there when the customer needs it on the shelf, then you're out of business. So it's basically a competition of supply chains and not of businesses anymore. So innovation is very, very important. And how good can you think before your competition and deliver it makes the difference. So you should have that mindset. Third one is technology. For innovation also, you need a lot of technology. So you should be technology savvy. Try to think of new ways of building. Drone is one of the ways, again, even though it's innovative, but also technology is there. But there are even other technologies which are coming up, like blockchain, Internet of Things. So there are a lot of technologies which are being used, 3D printing. How do you use these technologies to make sure that your supply chain is more efficient? For example, even tracking when I talked about visibility, to making sure how much you should know how much goods are available at each and every stage. You should have a technology to do that. You can't be calling up your your distributor or your retail asking how much do you have. If you have some technology, you will know at any point in time how much they hold, how much inventory they hold. So that's what is technology. Last but not least is supply chain is one area which is industry agnostic. What I mean by industry agnostic is it is not restricted to one industry. If I am a automotive or a automotive engineer, for example, I'm restricted to the automotive industry. If I'm a programmer, I'm restricted to the IT industry. But supply chain as a function or a supply chain as a career is not restricted to any one particular industry. The concepts are the same. You can work as a supply chain professional in the automotive industry and then move on to say from say being a supply chain professional in a car companies, say like Ford. You can move on to a supply chain professional in Amazon. And then from Amazon, then you can move on to another company, pharmaceutical company, because supply chain works. See, as long as there is a demand and your product needs to fulfill that demand, supply chain will exist. So almost all industries have this in common. And so supply chain is one area which has no limitations of industries, and you can be versatile across industries. So that's the sort of good thing the supply chain as a profession has. And it is a fantastic career which is growing right now. The opportunities are immense because technology is also growing in the same way. And lots and lots of people are now moving towards supply chain as a profession. And I think so it's a really good opportunity for people who are listening, right, and the students who are listening. And I would encourage them to look at this opportunity seriously. Thank you. Back to you, Chaitanya.
Yes, so this is where our presentation ends. If you have any questions, we are ready to take them.
Okay. Thank you, Shivasubramaniam, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
From both of our presenters, we got to know in real terms the importance and cost connected to logistics and supply chain. Starting from basic food items to Crocin, Maggi, etc., to military, everywhere logistics is important. It was clearly explained success of business is dependent on effective supply chain management. It is an area of challenge and a place for women to make their career. There is no restrictions in this field. So students who are ready to accept challenges, innovative and tech savvy, then BCom Logistics and Supply Chain Management is a way for you. This was the gist of our presenters for the day. Both of your presentations has given a great insight about supply chain management. So once again, thank you for both the presenters. Now the session is open for queries. Participants?
Yes, Aditya Raj, I see your hand raised. Please unmute yourself and speak up.
Technical.
Hello, sir.
Done, ma'am, done.
Sir, good afternoon. Hello. Hello.
Yes,
go ahead.
Aditya, you can ask your question.
Sir, good afternoon, sir. Sir, I wanted to know that can you explain us a brief explanation or some explanation on supply chain in e-commerce?
Shiva, would you want to take it?
Yeah, sure. So e-commerce, as I had mentioned, Aditya, Amazon, Flipkart, all these companies are e-commerce companies, and e-commerce basically runs on supply chain. The role of supply chain, in fact, in e-commerce companies is really high as compared to the other companies. The reason being that the main area, because they don't focus on making a product like other companies, they manufacture the product, but these companies are not into that business. Their business is to make sure that they understand the demand of the customer, and they have to make sure they fulfill the demand of the customer in the most efficient way. Like when you order in Amazon, they'll have to make sure that they give you clarity about when you will get the product. That is why they give you a clear tracking mechanism, whether the product has been shipped out, in which stage it is, when it is going to reach. They give you expected time of arrival. So all those are completely supply chain parameters, and that's how supply chain works. So that as a customer, you should be able to have that visibility of when you'll get the product. So supply chain plays a very, very major role in all the e-commerce companies. Is it clear?
Aditya,
Yes.
sir?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes. Any more questions from the participants? Please raise your hands so our technical team can unmute you.
Yes, Auchitya, please go ahead.
Sir, can you please tell me about the reverse logistics, like reverse logistics?
Sure. Again, Shiva, would you want to go or?
Yeah, I can take it, no problem.
Yeah, please.
So, Ajita, the reverse logistics is like the regular supply chain. How it works is understanding the demand and then making sure your product from the supplier reaches the customer. Reverse logistics basically is making sure that whenever a customer wants to return the product, how can it go back in the right way to the supplier? Or in case it has to be returned because of the product not being good or because of warranty issues or quality issues, how can it go back to the supplier? That is reverse logistics. And it is equally important because that also has to be efficient on how they track it. It cannot be taken from the customer and same sequence, track the same sequence, and then give it back to supplier. So supplier also knows that these products have come back because of various reasons, and then they need to take action on those products accordingly to ensure that the next slot which they are shipping will be in the right way. The companies would not like the products to be returned because that is additional cost for them. But nevertheless, having said that, reverse logistics also has to be designed because definitely in some situations, the customers may not like the product.
Thank
So
you, sir.
that's a very straightforward answer, Auchitya, but let me add a layer of complication to it. Now, you will find that people want to use it for a couple of days and return it back. Now, how would you handle that? Now, that's a very strong segment. There are people who would want to buy a camera because there's a wedding. They would use it, they would want to show it off. They would use it properly. You would realize that if you go look at the electronics bit, they would have clicked 3,000 pictures. And then they would return saying that the product is not good. Now, this is a problem. This is a real problem. Now, is there a specific answer to it? I don't know. It depends. It depends on the situation. So, as we speak, the levels of complications are only on the rise. So, trust me, supply chain is a beautiful place to be in. And if you are a problem solver, you will love every day of your work. You would love to wake up for a reason and go back to work. Thank you. Yes, Samrat, I can take your question. Please unmute yourself.
Sir, what happens if you mess up any supply chain?
As in mess up, could you please specify?
If some products are defective, for example, Ford car, Petra car was defective. It has some fuel problem. So what happens if that case happens?
All right. So now the problem per se is not a supply chain problem. The problem per se is a manufacturing problem. Okay. So in the automotive industry, there's a very, very strong, checks and balances that are done. I think if I'm not wrong, it goes through around 140 varieties of crash tests before the car actually becomes production ready. Now, and having said that, there have been situations where some faulty products or cars have come back. So it's not very uncommon that some companies have recalled their entire batches back. So Shiva, again, you are from the automotive industry. Do you want to add something there?
Yeah, sure. So sort of reverse logistics, what was the previous questions? Here also something similar will happen, wherein if you have a recall because of a quality issue, if it's just one car or two cars, then they will not be recalled per se, because it's just maybe pertaining to that particular vehicle. But then in general, if they identify that there are some defective parts based on a batch production or from the supplier, then they may have to recall. So in the recall also, the concept of reverse logistics is similar, wherein they'll try to see how can they bring back those cars to the respective dealerships, wherein they change the part and they put the new part or the correct part into it. So, but it's something similar of reverse logistics, wherein again we have to work back. We inform the customer. The customer has to bring their car to the dealerships based on a particular time and get it replaced. So that's how it works. Thank you.
Samrat, I think you got a better clarity on your question. Thank you, both of you. Before taking the next question, in the chat box, a link of Google form on feedback of the session will be posted. Make sure all of you will fill in the same. Gentle reminder, these certificates will be generated only for those who fill in the feedback forms.
And
so
it will be posted after, Sindhu, it will be posted after the question answer session and at the time of vote of thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Sure. Yashaswini, I saw your hand go next. Could you please unmute yourself and pose your question? Yashaswini? All right. So we have Aditya Raj. Are you done with your question?
Sir, I think the first question was from.
All right. Okay. So there is a lady by name Madonna William. Would you please unmute yourself and pose your question?
Hi. I work with Bank of Baroda. So like even lending process of banks, it goes through a supply chain activity. Right. But currently, even though loans are processed, everything is computer driven, and in a single click you get it. You get your loans. There is a lot of paperwork that goes through. Like there is a lot of bridging between a lot of departments within the system or within the bank. So there is something called risk management. So how would we how do we disrupt that? Like how do we take care of risk management with the help of supply chain and deliver a little more process driven activity? What would be the next thing?
Okay, sure, ma'am. I'll take that at a very high level, because one of the biggest challenges that happens on a bank, and specifically in the Indian context, is the amount of compliance that each step has to go through. Now, please understand this. India, majority is a land of people who are not highly educated. Now, most of the restrictions that we place on the banking system is to protect the not so educated. Now, imagine this. If you were to let a P-note kind of a structure happen in India, all the poor would lose money. Or if you let a MT 760 kind of a transaction happen in India, you do not know what would happen to a poor man. So what happens there is that there is a lot of restriction. Even today, you will realize that there are some places where paperwork is really required. Now, how do you make the difference between a paper-based work and not a paper-less work is one of the challenges. The second one is the compliance. Now, the way you look at it, now, if you look, now, again, what generally happens in the banking system is the transactions are tied to each bank. Now, on one side, you have a highly evolved structure like a Citibank complying to the RBI norms. And on the other side, you will see cooperative banks which have no structure. Now, how do you marry both? How do you make sure that transaction happen between both these things? So that has been a very big challenge as per my knowledge goes. And having said that, I know of a lot of fintech companies which are really working on the financial supply chains of it. So long answer short, it all depends on processes, and processes are crafted specifically to suit the compliance requirements of the central banks, and then bringing it to usage, and then making it available to the customers. Now, is the picture bad? Not at all. You know, when the last lockdown happened, or when the demonetization happened, by statistics, it's the village folks that used Paytms and the UPIs more than the city folks. Statistics speak of it. So the picture is not as bleak, but yes, changes are happening as far as I know. Shiva, any perspective that you would bring?
I think so. You answered more on the banking aspects, which I may not be able to throw that much of light on that. But with respect to supply chain, definitely what I can say is for risk management in supply chains, in the last 3 to 4 years, we used a lot of analytics. With analytics, we try to understand the risk patterns, and based on the past history, we try to study what are the probability of a particular risk to happen, a problem to happen, and based on that, we try to plan our supply chain accordingly. So for risk aversion, a lot of analytics is used heavily. Earlier, it was only a simple analytics of the past, but now it is more advanced with respect to prescriptive analytics, wherein we, using the same analytics tool or statistics, we try to even predict what is going to happen. So with that, we try to minimize the risk in supply chain.
And Madonna, yeah, thanks, Shiva. Madonna, thanks for bringing a new idea. That's a very good question for this session, and it's a reminder for me to go back to look at my supply chains in the finance sector. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
Supply chain is a word which we are using it quite recently. I mean, from the time that e-commerce industry started gearing up, this word supply chain has come into the picture. But I think supply chain is a process used from the day go in the industry in a lot of other fields. So what was it called as earlier? How is it we can connect to today's supply chain, the term supply chain, to the things that was happening earlier?
Right. So the history of supply chain is there for for a lot of us to read. But initially, it was called material requirement planning. Then it was called something else before it became supply chain. So initially, material requirement planning is right after the World War II, people realized that you will make money only when you become efficient. Now, so to become efficient, you needed raw material. So they called it material requirement planning. And after that, the local marketing was important. Shiva, would you know those terms? I don't remember them now.
Sorry.
After material requirement planning, there was some other term, and then after that came the supply chains. So
from the MRP, we became we had the enterprise resource planning.
Yes. ERP, enterprise.
And is merchandising also a part of supply chain?
Yes, ma'am. Merchandise, yes. In a way, if you look at, there are more different perspectives to it. Now, if you look at merchandising mostly relate to retail part of it. There are some companies who say retail is not a part of supply chain, but there are some companies who say retail is a part of supply chain. So merchandise specifically comes to the retail part of the supply chain. So the answer is, according to me, it is yes. So Shiva,
Thank you.
your perspective.
Yeah, see, earlier supply chains were there before, but it was in silos, wherein each and every team were responsible for, say, either procuring or for planning the production or for making sure that the materials are shipped out. So all the functions, maybe say 20, 25 years before, all the functions were there, but they were working in silos, irrespective of what the other teams were doing. The concept of supply chain is basically trying to bring in the synergies across all these functions to have a holistic view and see the benefits of that. If a guy who's shipping out knows, okay, what generate, and accordingly the orders for the vehicles ahead. So that sort of synergy across the different functions is what actually the supply chain is, and it extended beyond just the organization. It extended beyond organization to the suppliers on one side and to the dealers or the retailers on the other side. So trying to bring in all these different entities together and trying to get the benefit of the entire system is what supply chain. Earlier, they were working in different silos, and the supply chain tried to bring it all together. That's the difference.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sandhya ma'am. Any other
I
questions?
think we have two hands raised, Tejas VS, and then once again, Aushitya J. So you can invite one of them.
Tejas,
Namaste and
can we have your question?
good afternoon, sir. I had a question
Yeah.
about logistics in supply chain. As
Okay.
industry experts, do you think that because manufacturing already, some parts of manufacturing have been automated, sir, and logistics, by my what I have observed, it's not that automated, sir, because we see the middle class is shrinking, sir, and less people are, more and more people are getting educated. Middle class is increasing, and there's also new technology, sir, blockchain technology, AI, and also now Tesla is developing a semi-truck, sir, which will of course have its autopilot. So do you think in the future, is it a matter of a century or decades, sir, where we can see that logistics is fully automated, right from procurement of materials to transportation without a human being?
So I really don't know the answer, but I can tell you one thing. When a change happens, the adaptation is not taking time today. So if there is a solution, it will happen quickly. And I would not completely agree to say that logistics is not getting automated. It is, but I cannot comment on it. But change is a constant, and changes are happening. And the very aspect that Shiva spoke about, delivery through drones, and we don't know what is coming next. And as it comes, it becomes available very quickly. Shiva, your perspective.
Yeah, sure. That's a really actually very good question. The thing is, automation will not take away the job of a human being, because whenever you automate something, you will tend to make your job you will take your job to the next level. It will not be, because automation is something which is done for any monotonous job or anything in which the human intelligence is not used to that level normally. So whenever you make that automated, then as humans, we tend to think what to do next. We really use our intelligence there, and the level or the type of job which we do will go to the next level. So that's what normally happens in any automation. So even logistics, whenever we are trying to automate any of the things, say semi-automatic trucks or anything, humans will then try to see how we can monitor those trucks better. How can we make it more efficient? How can we make sure that the roads are good so that the trucks don't have any problem? Because as a human being, when you drive a truck stops, you get down and you try to make sure that you can repair it. But then if it's an automatic truck, you can't do that. So then how can you get over that? So your thinking process keeps on going to the next level of intelligence, and that's what humans are bound to do. So whatever automation comes in logistics, as human beings, our thought process will always be better than that.
Sir,
I hope I've answered.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I asked this question because we can see these fashion industries, sir, companies in fashion industry which earn a lot of money, sir. For example, Supreme, Louis Vuitton. Louis Vuitton is giant, sir, and they are facing the biggest that they're facing for in their market is counterfeiting, sir. And we see that many people, humans beings, sir, who are not educated, drivers and all, they easily give away their products, sir, for not even a lot of money, sir, because they are not educated and qualified. So my question was based on this, sir, because it's a high profit company industry, sir. This was my question.
So so that's why you see, whenever you have such high profit industries and when counterfeiting is a problem, technologies like blockchains have evolved for that only. So through blockchain, you can make sure that counterfeiting is avoided. So that's what people think to the next level whenever you have this problem. Thanks.
So again, as I said, that's a great answer, Shiva. Please understand, kids, supply chain per se is a technical problem, but the moment you make it a moral problem, the answers are very complicated. So, technology will do its job, but the moment you have a moral problem, then the whole solution becomes a very tough thing to do. One of the biggest challenges in India is shrinkage. You know what shrinkage means? It's stealing. In other markets, probably if it is around 2 to 3%, we are easily looking at around 20% in India. So shrinkage is one problem. In the retail side, shrinkage is left, right, and center. So it's a moral problem. So how do we solve it? Again, lots of checks and balances. Yes. Next question.
Tejas, I think both of them have answered your question. Next,
Yes, ma'am.
Auchitya. Auchitya, please unmute.
Unmute yourself, Auchitya.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Question. Your question.
Sir, I just wanted to know, how is the margin of the product affected if there is like a wrong shipment?
Sorry, could you repeat that, Auchitya? Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Sir, I just wanted to know, how is the margin of the product affected when there is a wrong shipment?
Okay.
I'll take that question second. So when a product is wrongly shipped, definitely you will lose that margin because either you have to return it back and the supplier has to replace it with your new one. So in such cases, if at all the wrong shipment happens, more than looking at the profitability, the customers will look at customer satisfaction. The suppliers will look at customer satisfaction. So because they will look at the long-term perspective of getting repeat customers. You may have a hit of, say, for that one particular product, you may have a hit on the margin. But then if you see the long term, the same customer will be so happy that you replaced his or her product, they will again come back for purchase. So those are the trade-offs which we'll have to do in business.
Thank you, sir.
There is Mohit Kumar. Just check, Sindhu madam. You can take this.
Mohit Kumar.
Yes, ma'am. It's me, Mohit Kumar. Ma'am, I want to ask a very simple question.
Please go ahead.
Ma'am, if ma'am we start the import rate while we are decreasing the export rate, can we get the increase in our GDP? अगर हम लोग इंपोर्ट को बढ़ा दे और एक्सपोर्ट रेट्स को कम कर दे, हम लोग बस उतना ही गुड्स को एक्सपोर्ट करवाएं इंडिया के अंदर जितना हमको नीड है, तो क्या मैम इससे हमारा जीडीपी में इंक्रीजमेंट आ सकता है?
Sir, open question for both of you, Shiva sir or Chaitanya sir.
Yes, Shiva, go ahead.
I'll try to answer that. See, importing, if you're increasing your imports, it's mean more than your exports. It means the domestic economy is not good. Not to produce more here. It's not an ideal situation because you have to provide employment. Employment is the key thing for the overall economy to grow. So if you're not able to give that, then long-term sustainability of only importing is not going to help, because the implications of that would be your inflation will go up in the local economy, because importing is a costly thing and any product you import will have so many extra factors added to it, and the cost will be really high. So the inflation will go up. People will not be, since there is no employment in the country, so people will not have money to buy those products. So the poverty will go up. So it is not an ideal situation, sustainable situation for the economy. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir, it's an exact answer. But sir, if we are increasing the importing rate, then we have to increase the production rate also. So the production, if we can increase the production rate, so maybe, sir, we should have to hire the more employee to get the good production, and we need a sustainable and a good team to maintain the products qualities also. So sir, it will affect or not if we are increasing the employment plus importing rate?
No, importing means importing is you're getting it from another country, right? So you're increasing employment in some other country, not in our country.
Oh, or if we increase the export rate or increase.
Correct. If you increase the export, then definitely, yes, it's going to help our economy. So that's what is happening in China and all. They're exporting a lot. So they are able to have a very good employment in their country. So that's
and
what,
sir,
so,
now there is a main question. Sir, India, there is basically more than the 200 companies are running at the top of the Indian country, which are come in the products quality. They are totally low quality products. In India, sir, basically all the companies use the 80% of their margin to do 80% of the margin of the production they use in a advertisement. If, sir, we can advertise only for the 20% and we invest the 80% capital to increase the goods quality, so can it be the beneficial or it can be beneficial, sir? My main answer is question of this. अगर हम लोग जो पैसा खर्च करते हैं प्रोडक्ट का एडवर्टाइजमेंट करने पे, अगर वही पैसा सर हम लोग प्रोडक्ट का क्वालिटी पे इंक्रीज करें, तो इससे सर फर्क तो आएगा, लेकिन सर किस टाइप का फर्क हम लोग को ज्यादा देखने को मिलेगा इकोनॉमी में, मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है.
Okay, should I answer, Chaitanya?
Yeah, please go ahead. Please, yes.
Okay, I'll answer in English probably because majority audience will be able to understand.
Yes, sir, it's okay.
So see, if your quality is good, you invest more in quality, then your advertising cost will go down automatically, because the more and more your product sells with a good quality, that itself is your brand. And automatically the word of mouth will spread that this particular product has a very good quality, and people will start using it, and your sales will increase. Once your sales increases automatically because of that, you need not advertise so much. So it is only that if your product is not good, you will have to tell everyone, please buy the product. But if your quality is good, it speaks for itself, and automatically your advertising budget will come down. Chaitanya, if you want to add.
Yes. So again, that's a supply chain problem. I'll speak of the human problem. Now, Mohit, let's assume I give you two options. Okay, I will give you a train, a normal ticket, which will cost you. Say you are taking your train to the last minute. In the last minute.
Yes, sir.
I will say I will charge you so much amount and get your ticket. And some broker says, sir, isko aur thoda paisa de do, main kuch kar dunga. Now, which one would you choose?
Sir, I'll choose directly the train bit, क्योंकि मेरे पास एक सेफ ऑप्शन है. ब्रोकर 90% केसेस में ये करते हैं कि वो लोग पैसा तो ले लेते हैं, बट एट द एंड ऑफ द टाइम वो पलटते हैं. तो सर मैं अपना फर्स्ट ऑप्शन को ज्यादा प्रेफर करूंगा.
So if people like you are in majority, then the products will be in good shape. Now, a second question. Who is the second person to land on the moon?
Sir, I don't know his name, sir.
Exactly, right? People do not know the second person's name. So in the trust for quality versus profitability, many organizations, I will not say all, a vast majority of the organizations look for advertisement as a revenue as a chance to increase their revenue, as a way to increase their revenue. So if shortcuts are our way, advertisement budgets go up. But if you want to build an enterprise that will stand long, then quality is the most important thing.
Yes, sir.
So it is all a problem. It's all a decision of the board, of the person who is running the enterprise.
Rightly said, sir. Quality is the mantra of the day.
Yes.
I think, Mohit, sir, your question was answered.
Yes,
Sanjay Badra. Can we have your question, sir? Sanjay Badra.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes.
My question pertains to business ethics. Like as Chaitanya sir just mentioned that a number of times customers uses a product for a few days and return the same back as a major issue and a challenge for the SCM industry, no doubt. Now, my reverse question to this is to maintain for expansion of business. Now, SCM and e-commerce, they are superimposed. So in the vendor management portion, in the name of expansion of the business, we keep on registering various vendors. To what extent we carry out checks on the quality and all is a question. Now, with that, let's take direct example. In case I see on an e-commerce platform that the cost of a shoe, a Reebok shoe, say, is giving me a figure of 1,200 or 1,500, I get lured. I said, oh, great. Generally, it's not, it is humanly impossible to get a Reebok shoe for 1,200. So I get lured and I buy it. Okay, in a span of just 6 months, it just gets rolled off. And I complain the same to the e-commerce platform. Beautifully, one reply comes in that terms and condition, which is mentioned at, say, invisible letters, that the warranty valid for 6 months. So it is the 7th month that the owner took place. So I'm sorry, we cannot do anything on the same. Sir, I do agree that pandemic has given a boom to this supply chain industry, no denying the fact.
Sanjay Badra sir, sorry to interrupt. Can you be little precise over your question?
Yes.
There are others waiting for it and we are time up.
What actions are desired to ensure that we don't cheat our own customers by just mentioning that the Reebok shoe being sold at 12, which is not a Reebok shoe as such?
Okay, so again, I will answer the question. Again, it's a moral problem. I've been recently to one of the Bosch offices. They tell me that the Bosch office in Bangalore on the Kanakpura road, no, not the Kanakpura road, the other road, Banerghatta road, they tell me that they produce about 1,000 parts for a certain company, for a certain brand, the car cooler fan. Now they release 1,000 per day, and they believe it's almost 10,000 fans that go into the market in the name of Robert Bosch. Now, when they come back for service, they come back and say, we bought it from you, this is an original part. How will you identify? They came back to me with a problem like that. Sir, I know we have complicated solutions. Is there a simple solution we can do? See, solution aside, if the problem is like this, now how will you face it? How will you answer it? The second question, you asked about the timeline. It's again, as I told you, it's a more of a ethical problem than a business problem or a supply chain problem. Now, if somebody designs a shoe, that I can actually name companies which will say, if I design a shoe which will last for 3 years, wo wapas kab aayega? And 3 saal mein there might be a new business and people might be lured to go there. So they produce a shoe which will last 7 to 8 months. It's not very difficult to figure out. I can't take names, but I can tell you that there are companies which work like that. Now, but having said that, all these companies may do well for some time, but the one that thrives is somebody who's always had a penchant for quality. Look at a Mont Blanc. A Reynolds is available for 20 rupees. A Mont Blanc starts at 78,000 rupees, man. Why will people still go and buy it? So it all is a way you want to do business. Do you have a short-term goal? And today businesses are also decided by, okay, I will build a business and I will spin it off. I will let somebody buy it. Now in those decisions, what kind of decision people make, we do not know. Is it a supply chain problem? I really think it's more of a business problem than a supply chain problem. Shiva.
Okay, I'll try to give you the supply chain perspective of this. Now, for a car manufacturer, there will be around, say, 300 to 400 suppliers. So what a car manufacturer does is, they give a list of checklists. If you have to be our supplier, you have to make sure that these standards are met. So that's how supply works. So, and they can enforce that on the 300, 400 suppliers. When you see Amazon, they will have anywhere between, say, 3,000 to 4,000 suppliers like this, because so many products are there and so many suppliers will be there. Can they do the same checklist? No, practically it is not feasible. So what can be done in such scenario? If they don't give an opportunity to a supplier, that is also not correct to a small supplier. If they say only the premium brands can be sold in Amazon, that's also not correct. So they have to give an opportunity to the smaller players. But then their duty is also to make sure they protect the customers. So what they do is, some of the best suppliers, out of their experience, out of their review mechanism, that is how they say Amazon preferred, or in Flipkart, you'll have their preferred suppliers. So those preferred suppliers probably mean that they would have gone and checked how they operate and do they give good quality products and all. So that's one way of how they ensure that the customers get a good product. The other way is based on the feedback of the customer. So when you get that Reebok shoe and you say that it's not good, you put a feedback, you give a rating of 1 or something, that is again analyzed by Amazon. So if they see that regularly people are giving a score of 1 or 2, then they will make sure that they talk to the supplier, either they remove him or put a new supplier, or they will give a clear warning to the supplier to make sure they improve the product. So that's the mechanism how it works in these companies. I hope I've addressed the supply chain aspect. Thanks.
So last question for the day. Mohit Mohit Kumar. I think Mohit has raised again.
Mohit has raised already.
Mohit has raised again.
Tushar is online.
Tushar is online.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Yes.
Tushar, yeah.
Yeah, ma'am. Am I audible, right? Good morning.
Yes, you're audible, sir.
Yeah, sir, I am a PGT Commerce. I am taking CSCS classes also. So I hope that the answer would be in practical base. My question is that lots of students are asking that how to be a startup in the logistic field. And if I am starting that in first time in initial manner, that what are the steps or what are the point I should be keep in mind to be face the competition in the local market, and as at least that I can get the normal profit.
You have more a question to you.
Okay, I'll try to answer that. For a logistics startup, see, the first and foremost is as a startup, you have to understand what is that undelivered need which you are now trying to fulfill. You cannot get into existing business directly and again competing with the big companies. It's not practically, or it will take a long time for you to even earn a profit or get a market share. So there should be some niche area or some unfulfilled need of a customer which you're trying to fulfill. Let me give you an example. There was a company called Rivigo, and it's a new logistics company which came up hardly 3-4 years back, but they are really successful now. And the reason being is, what was their unique proposal is, they try to deliver products 24 hours, 24/7. How do they do that? Practically it was not happening before, because always a truck driver used to drive, so say 8 hours or 10 hours a day, stop, overnight they'll be sleeping, and next day morning again they'll start, they'll drive. So what used to take around say 5 days or 6 days to reach from night, Rivigo will deliver it to you in 2 to 3 days. And how did that happen is, they have a set of checkpoints in different areas in India, wherein a driver will drive, go to the next checkpoint, stop there, and the vehicle will be taken over by another driver who was sleeping or who used to rest before the full day. So he'll be fresh, he will take over the vehicle, and then he'll continue the drive. The truck will never stop. So 24/7, the truck will be driving and it will reach the point in next to 2 to 3 days. And that's how they plan. So the maintenance of the vehicle also, they make sure that the trucks will be maintained in a proper manner because they are running 24/7. How do they maintain that? They have a proper schedule. So that sort of a thinking or something new idea, if you have, then yes, you will be profitable very soon. But if you want, as a startup, if you're getting into the existing business, you're trying to meet the same requirements which are already there of the customer with other companies I'm meeting, it's going to be difficult. That's a practical scenario. Thank you.
Brilliant. Now, I will give you a general perspective on a startup. Now, I believe the Startup India ecosystem is catching on to the youngsters as well. Now, when you start a company, there are, again, this is my take on it. There are 4 layers in which business is done according to me. One is the unconditional follower. In this layer, the customer is the king. So whatever the customer says, you listen to them. The second layer is a conditional follower. So the company gets into a certain situation where they have to say, all right, I will listen to the customer. Say one of the examples is the export surplus that you see. Probably a Levi's is doing it, but they have accumulated and there are some small minor errors, and then the stock is piling up. So they say, all right, the customer is the king. Let us give it a discount. The third one is a conditional leadership. So this is a layer where a certain condition exists in the market and you become the leader. A classic example is the hand sanitizer companies. Now a certain situation emerged in the market and they became leaders. They made a lot of money. And the fourth one is unconditional leaders. Now, if you look at any business, ideally I would say Tesla, all those layers of companies are unconditional leaders. But even in your local businesses, you will see unconditional leaders. If you see a Vidyarthi Bhavan or if you see a Brahmin's Cafe, they have their businesses. You cannot take them off. They are leaders in their business, in their own segment. Now, if you know which segment you want to follow, then setting up a company becomes easier. So it's only a checklist, but I think what Shiva said was very specific. But what I'm telling you is just a checklist of where you would want to position yourself. Right. The next question, please.
Tushar, sir, I think both of them clarified your doubts, both practically and in the logistic perspective. I think we are running out of time. And whosoever have questions, in our WhatsApp group, we would have put our college mail ID. Please post your questions to the same mail ID. I think all the doubts and clarifications have been very well and with good coordination answered by both of our speakers. I once again thank them both for the same. Now I request Principal Dr. R. Shanti Iyer to give vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Sindhu. Before I really deliver vote of thanks, I would like to congratulate all the audience, the young, say that the +2 level students and further degree level students and all that, to have the brilliant interaction. That was something great. We all really enjoyed the interaction. Secondly, I would like to place in my record and congratulate to both the speakers. What a brilliant Jugalbandi, sirs, both of you had. We say Jugalbandi between the Carnatic and North Indian classical music, and here I could see the brilliant Jugalbandi between the the way you both presented and gave the most satisfactory answer to all our students. And students, do not hesitate posting the questions to say to our college mail ID. We will definitely get back with the answer from the speakers to you. And we will definitely send your questions to both our speakers, and you will get your answers in the similar Jugalbandi manner. So thank you so much for that brilliant way of giving us the the kind of interaction. The stage was brilliant. Okay. Before I really go ahead with the formal vote of thanks, I also would like to bring to all the students give the information to all the students what NSAM First Grade College offers to +2 level students and the PU level, second PUC passed out students now. We have BCom, General BCom with Logistics and Supply Chain Management. We have BBA. Also, we have BBA with Aviation Management. In addition to that, we also have BA program, arts program with 2 different combinations. One is with BA with Psychology, Journalism, and Communicative English. The second combination we have is BA with Political Science, Economics, and Sociology. We not only have these university-based programs, but also we add values to these programs by offering you all the value-added programs, job-oriented value-added program rather, certificate program on healthcare management, agribusiness management, digital marketing. We have some professional programs like Chartered Accountant CA Foundation program, Cost Accountancy Program, CMA, and Company Secretaryship, that is CS Foundation Program. And also we have Skill Development Program to add value there in aviation management, that is airline customer service, airline ramp operation, airline security service management. So these are the multiple programs. We have the basket option open for the students who come to NSAM First Grade College with all the certificate program, and you can opt any one of these. Of course, there is some this thing, if at all, whenever you want, you can always contact our admission team and get to know the details about it. Now, getting into the next responsibility of mine, it is my prime privilege to present the vote of thanks as the head of this institution for today's session. I, on behalf of management and all my staff members, extend a very sincere and heartfelt thanks to both the speakers, Mr. Chaitanya and Mr. Shiva Subramania, for sharing their expert views, thoughts, and experiences on the topic logistics and supply chain management during pandemic, plan for now and future. I'm sure that you all must have got enriched with the informations that was given by both the speakers, and which has, and in this particular field, which has enormous job opportunities. I also thank all of you, all of you for joining us for this, and I'm sure that you must have got a lot of information, interesting information, and so on and so forth. Mr. Rohit Punja, our administrator, NITE Education Trust, he has been the great source of inspiration and support for all our endeavors. I, on behalf of NSAM First Grade College and my personal behalf, extend a very, very sincere thanks. I sincerely thank Dr. Venugopal, Sir, Director, NITE School of Management, for encouraging us and guiding us in organizing such events. And also Ms. Chitra, the principal of NSAM PU College, Ms. Rani Sebastian, the principal NITE International School, Ms. Jyoti, the principal of NITE PU College, for all their unconditional support. My wholehearted special thanks to Mr. Giri Narayana, who is the BOS member and visiting faculty of NSOM, and he has been a key person with NITE Education Trust, who gave us all these experts whom you heard some time back associated with logistics and supply chain. I place in my record the sincere gratitude and thanks to Mr. Chetan Shetty, Mr. Kiran Mirajkar, Mr. Ritish, Mr. Sanjeev Jha, for being very, very supportive to us. My very special thanks to the organizing team of Dr. NSAM First Grade College, Ms. Sandhya Keshav, Dr. Sindhu N, Mr. Yatish, and the technical team comprising of Mr. Devnath, Mr. Vinod, Mr. Gautam. Without the support from all these people, this event would not have been possible at all. I also extend a very, very special thanks to all my staff members of sister institutions, as well as my own colleagues from Dr. NSAM First Grade College for their support, for their presence to make this event a great success. At the end, I wish all the second PUC and the +2 students who are the aspirants of the degree program, the various degree program, a very best for their bright future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Our technical team will be sharing the feedback link to the WhatsApp group and to the registered mail IDs. Participants, do check your mail IDs and fill in the feedback forms.
I also request the technical team and all my support, organizing team, to switch on their videos so that there can be a screenshot towards the end, please.
Yeah, let me repeat. Your feedback form link will be sent in the WhatsApp group and your registered mail IDs. Please make sure that you fill in the feedback form.
I also request Dr. Venugopal, Chitra madam, they are there to switch on their video if they are there, please. And Rani ma'am, if you are there.
Venugopal sir, any feedback for us, sir, on today's session?
Venugopal sir, your advice and your feedback. Sir, please unmute yourself. Sir, kindly unmute yourself.
Actually, I should say special thanks to both the speakers for their patience and their knowledge,
Yeah.
the kind of interaction they made. So I say it was like Sunday biryani for everybody.
Okay.
So thanks to both of them, heartfully from Nite Group. I think they have done extraordinary job. I think
Yes.
today they got a Sunday biryani on this auspicious Sunday. Thank you,
Yes,
madam.
sir. Rightly said, sir. That is why I use the word of Jugalbandi. It was a brilliant session, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So
And
thank you.
yes, sir. Devnath and Gautam, I want you all also to switch on your video, please. Venugopal sir, please stay with us.
Yes, ma. Yes.